I'd like to welcome everyone to today's Renewed webinar, Foolproof Strategies to Bring New Product Ideas to Life. This webinar is brought to you by Renewed, the open network for specialized subscription, membership, and event professionals. My name is Stephanie Williford, and I'm your host for today's event. During today's presentation, everyone will be on mute, but you can unmute yourself if you are called on or have a question. If you're unable to hear or see the presentation or have any technical issues, you can private message me directly in the chat. If you have questions for today's speaker, you can also submit them throughout the discussion and at the end during the live Q&A using chat. After the presentation, everyone will have access to the slides and recording at renewed.net/resources, and you'll receive an email once it's posted. We also encourage you to share takeaways from this event on social media using #renewed. And for today's session, I'd like to introduce Rob Ristagno, CEO of the Sterling Woods Group. He shows companies how to solve revenue challenges fast. Formerly a McKinsey consultant, Rob has served as an operating executive at several companies, including COO of America's Test Kitchen. He has helped businesses big and small, including the Smithsonian, Comcast, and the New York Times. Rob, please go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie. And thank you, everyone, for spending some time together this morning. I don't know about you, but I feel like my life has been a 13-month-long Zoom call. So I appreciate everyone's time and attention. And my commitment to you is to make this interactive. And it's not going to be yet another PowerPoint presentation with a talking head. So I encourage you all, if you're comfortable with it, turn on your cameras and be ready to participate. We'll have some exercises, some polls, also some breakout rooms. So that will make everyone learn more, and it'll be a little more fun, I think. So we're here, though, today to talk about new product development, which is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I just love it. It's so exciting. It's a chance to be creative. It's a chance to help your customers in new and different ways. It makes you feel like you're making forward progress with your organization. But let's be honest, it's also challenging and can be risky. And I'm sure we all have an experience in our career where we got really excited about a new product, and for whatever reason, it just didn't work out. And there's lots of famous product failures out there. I'm not sure if anyone remembers Crystal Pepsi, but that was $1 billion investment by Pepsi, and I personally thought it tasted like bad breath. So that was not a successful launch there. Airbus, they spent $25 billion building that double-decker A380. Anyone ever been on an A380, the double-decker one? They just ceased production. It was only in market for 12 years, which is the shortest that an airplane has ever been in production. So total failure there. So the goal today, though, is let's not be like Pepsi or Airbus. Let's minimize the odds of failure. Let's maximize the chances of success in our new product development processes. So let's just dive in there. So let's start, though, with a poll. I want to hear where you're all coming from. So we'll have a couple of polls throughout the presentation here today. But let's figure out where we're all coming from so I can tailor the content accordingly.
Is it giving you the option to launch the poll, Rob?
It says attendees are now viewing questions. I wonder if you're the co-host, if you can't see it, maybe. Great, we have 62% reporting. Great. I think it forces you to pick a choice for every question to submit it. So another 10 seconds here, and we'll see how we stacked up.
If you've already finished the poll too, if you haven't yet, you can check out the chat to download the handout for today.
All right, let's share the results here and see how we did on the poll. Thanks for voting. So half of us launched a product over the last 12 months, and about 2/3 are planning on launching a new one. There's a couple people who maybe are thinking a little bit before they launch one. So hopefully you learned something today that helps you make your decision whether or not to launch something new. This is actually pretty consistent with that 50% launched over the last 12 months. We did a research project in the fall and found that 47% of companies launched something during COVID. So almost exactly what we see in the room today. And so while it was a great tragedy, it was also a time of business innovation. And we saw that. It sounds like this group saw it as well. So how do we think about new product development? It seems like the winning choice here is we're pretty cautious about new products, prefer optimizing what we have. Not a lot of people just are running with it. The second choice, a lot of people are doing some informal market validation. And there's a couple of people online. I'd love to have you participate in this process that have a rigorous new product development process. And maybe you could be co-presenters with me here and share some of your wins and best practices and processes, because what the data show is that companies that do follow some sort of formal process are 42% more likely to have a successful launch than people who don't. So there's a lot of value in having a process. We'll go through a process that I've used and got a lot of great results out of today, but there are other processes. The fact that you have a process and you're putting some rigor into the approach leads to a much greater odds of success. So why don't we jump in? And as Stephanie mentioned, there's a handout available in the chat feature, new product development PDF. So no PowerPoint, just a handout. And so let's dive in, and let me share with you the new product development process that I've used in the past, that I've taught. The bio said I taught this course at Boston College. So this is what I taught, and trying to cram 15 weeks worth of content into an hour here. So it'll feel fast-paced, and hope you learn a lot and take away something that can help you with your future new product development efforts. So if you could open the workbook to page 2, and that's just an overview of the new product development process. I'm going to just give you a two-second overview of it, and we're going to go deep on a few of these things today. But step 1 is strategic planning. Asking and answering the question, why are we doing this, and who are we doing it for? Step 2 is concept selection. What does that mean? Concept selection is basically what is it that we're building? What are the product features? What elements are in the service that we're going to provide? What exactly does it look and feel like? What assets are we going to bring to the table? And what is the experience? Step 3, economic evaluation. And there's 2 types of economic evaluations. One is market research, so validating that the concept we selected in phase 2 is going to be attractive and accepted by our potential customers. And then the second type of evaluation is more of a financial model. So what does the profit and loss statement look like? How much we're going to have to invest, on what timeline, and do the assumptions make sense? Phase 4 is development, so that's self-explanatory. Let's actually make the product. And phase 5 is launch, bringing it to the market and figuring out what we can do to really nurture it and make sure that we maximize our odds to success. Now that we spent all this time and money getting to launch, how can we maximize our ROI? And the beauty of this process, by the way, is at the end of every step, you can make a go, no-go decision. So you might call them stage gates. At the end of step 1, doesn't look like we have a big strategy here. Let's scrap it and go back to the drawing board. Even if you get all the way to stage 3 and you have to scrap it there, maybe you lost a little bit of time, but you didn't go through that $25 billion investment in the Airbus and developed it. So it allows you to take a step back, be rigorous about saying, are we confident this is going to be a win, and have some very conscious decision points along the way. And that is really the secret sauce, which makes this increase results by 42%. So let's put something in the chat here. These are the 4 stages. Does everyone take a guess in the chat? Which of the 4 stages do most companies skip? Put a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Let's see what people think. 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Lots of ones. I can't fool anyone here. That is the correct answer. Most people, and it's tempting, and I'm guilty of it too, so there's no shame in doing it, but it's tempting to go right for phase 2. Phase 2 is, look, we have this idea, we have this newsletter, and we have this webinar series, and we have these courses online, and we're going to bundle them together, and we're going to sell them. It's tempting to start with the product and the features, but the biggest mistake that we can make is to forget to do step 1, which is strategic planning. So why don't we say a little bit more about exactly what strategic planning means and why it's so important. So in your workbook on page 3, there's an outline of what's called a product innovation charter. This should really be the output and the deliverable for your strategic planning process. It's 6 simple questions that you should make sure that you not only agree on as a management team, but you've vetted and you've validated these things with your market and your stakeholders and your CFO. But if this were a printed workbook, I would ask you to please circle the first row, circle target customer and problem statement, because Harvard Business Review did a study. They looked at products that failed. 85% of the time, they failed because one of these 2 cells was either wrong or not completed. So we're going to go deep on these 2 cells. There's 6 things. They're all important. I don't want to downplay the other 4, but given that we only have an hour together today, let's really focus on these first 2 things, because these are leading drivers to failure if they're not addressed correctly. So target customer. What customer segment are we targeting? And it's really important to be focused here, and it comes down to customer segmentation. What do I mean by customer segmentation? Most people's audience, everyone's audience, customer base is made up by a handful of segments. And I think the problem that we all fall into is that we look at the average. And unfortunately, averages lie. We had one client who was in a consumer media brand, and they were looking at some casual hobbyists in their space, and people who knew getting into the hobby, and that was the average. When they're sending out all these surveys, they find, oh, we have a bunch of people that are new to this hobby. It's in the home brewing space. And when you looked at the market and you segmented the market, you realize there are actually 4 different types of people interested in this content. Yes, the people getting started and the casual hobbyists, but you also had tire kickers. You had people that were serious professionals. They brewed every weekend. And then you had semi-pro, people that actually were so excited about brewing, they wanted to open their own nano brewery. And of course, how you would target, what products you would build for each of those 4 segments of your audience are completely different. You wouldn't try to sell how to build a marketing plan to the casual hobbyist, but that is something that would be extremely compelling and valuable to the semi-pro nano brewer. So it's important here that we think about our audience in terms of segments rather than averages. As I like to joke that if you have your head in the oven and your feet in the freezer, on average, your body temperature is 98.6, but you obviously have big problems at the extremes there. So we'll go through an exercise to bring that to life right now, just to help everyone think through their own segments within their audience. Now, I'm going to ask everyone to do an exercise in a minute. But if we could just think about a product that the 2/3 of the people that said they're launching a product this year, why don't you think about that product and what's going on there? And then for the people that aren't doing something next year, but did something last year, you're allowed to have some revisionist history here. Let's think about what you were intending to do last year. And for the handful of people who aren't interested in new product development, just make up a product that you think that your company might want to launch, just for the sake of the activity here. And what we're going to do in a minute is we're going to go into breakout rooms and ask you to define your ideal customer for this new product along 5 dimensions. So I'll take a minute or 2 to tee up the 5 dimensions now, but the exercise will be rapid fire, 2 minutes each. Think about your ideal demographics, ideal firmographics, ideal behaviors, et cetera, et cetera. No right or wrong answers. It's just to start building the muscle. Demographics and firmographics are things that I assume everyone on the line here is familiar with, and you're probably already using in any of your marketing or product development efforts. But I do have a question for people. What if I told you that there were 2 gentlemen, both in the UK, both worth more than $50 million or pounds, and they're both in their mid-70s? Would you want to target them in the same way? Well, you probably, if you only rely on demographics, you'd probably say yes. But now let me tell you that one of those gentlemen is Prince Charles and the other is Ozzy Osbourne. So you can have people that have the same demographics, but have totally different needs for what you have to offer. So demographics, if you're doing demographics, don't stop. They're important, but standalone, they're not sufficient. Same thing with firmographics. It's very important, especially for the business media, B2B publishers and the audience today. To think about who we're targeting, the size of their company, what industry they're in, what life stage they're in, if they're growing or in financial distress or something in between. So I'm not downplaying demographics and firmographics, but there's more to the story. One is behaviors. And this is how people are interacting with your brand, what they're doing online, what they're doing offline. One publisher, they were thinking about launching an online digital membership, and they studied their audience, and they said, well, we have all these print people, we want to upsell all these print people. But the research showed that a third of those print people had no interest whatsoever. You could tell them they get $1 million if they went online. They had no interest in a digital product. So don't focus on them. Let them be your print customers, and then instead focus on the people that did have a propensity to behave online and to transact online, and build your product around that segment of your audience. Attitudes is another really important thing that's not as popular, as widely used as demographics or firmographics when segmenting. So attitudes are mindsets, psychographics, perspectives. It's basically why your product matters to them. So for a business media publisher, they were doing a lot of content in the, I'll say, crisis mitigation. Hey, how do you avoid having a cash flow problem? How do you fire a difficult employee? And really, when they studied their audience, they found that their best customers, the ones that were paying to join their expensive membership program, were more growth mindset CEOs. So they were ones that cared about growing their business and coaching their team and crushing their numbers and things like that. So you, of course, would communicate and build products totally differently for the in-crisis CEO versus the, hey, I'm getting up at 4 in the morning doing yoga and drinking smoothies and crushing it type of CEO. And this fifth dimension is something that is actually new. This is the first time I'm presenting it. It's something we just stumbled upon. It's one of these things that was obvious in hindsight. But the name of the game is building relationships with your customers. So to build a product that enables you to build a relationship with your customer, that's how you're going to be most successful. And relationships are really founded on sharing values. And so just for example, our values are problem solving and intellectual curiosity. That's really important to us. Teaching and learning. So we like learning things and teaching other people things, learning from others. And it sounds simple, but being kind. So we're not going to step on each other's toes or get political or things like that. So that's really important to us. And I think if we go back and look at all the clients that we've had and score them on those 3 dimensions, the absolute home runs, we were a values match in all 3. And when there was an occasional project that hit a bump in the road, it was almost always a values issue. So really think through your values, your firm values, and make sure you're finding customers that share those values with you. It's really important. So enough lecturing. I said this was going to be interactive and dynamic. Let's go into breakouts. And again, think about the product that you're going to launch this year or the product that you launched last year. And who is that ideal customer? How do they fit into these 5 different circles? And just go around. There'll be about 3 people, depending on the math, in your breakout session. Just go around, 2 minutes each, no right or wrong answers. It's really just to build that muscle to start thinking through these five boxes. So Stephanie, if you wouldn't mind doing the honors and putting us all into breakouts.
Yep, I'm going to do that now. And I think you said 6 minutes and then we'll call everybody back.
That's exactly right.
All right. See you guys soon.
All right. Welcome back, everyone.
Our group launched 19 products.
19 products. That's pretty impressive.
Yes.
That's going to go through the roof on that poll.
Yeah. And no financial.
There's just overachievers in your group. Major overachievers in your group.
Yeah.
I think what it means is they didn't do step 1.
Went straight to step 2. That's what I do. Straight to step 2.
Does anyone here actually want to share some, maybe someone had an insight or a moment of clarity? Anyone want to share something that they learned from going through that quick exercise? I think the most extreme one that I've come across is a publisher in the home, what would you call it? Home finishings, home design space. Thought they were a consumer magazine. And when they actually went through the research, they realized they were a B2B magazine, that their best customers were actually the local architects and tradespeople. And so they pivoted from being a consumer magazine funded by advertising to being a more B2B player and building a list and having events and trainings on how to run a design business. Does anyone else have any aha moments or realize, oh, maybe we could be a little more precise on who we're targeting, or maybe we're targeting too many people, or anyone want to share? Is that hand raised?
Anna mentioned just the issue of of trying to design products that captured new market share on the edges of your existing. So a strategic goal being, or a problem being, to try to, 25% new to file customers kind of thing. That the importance of that stuff. So that was one thing we talked about, and the mistakes you can make around thinking what those people want. Sort of learning quickly and correcting quickly.
We call that the market formerly known as secondary.
Yeah.
But it is a good point.
Humming Purple Rain.
I hope this was a good exercise, and it showed you kind of a little bit of the process and the exercise to go through. But I will say that it is important to learn from the market. So it starts with brainstorming at the management team level, doing an exercise similar to what we did, and I encourage you to bring it back to your teams. But the real way to validate and the real way to reduce risk from your new product development process is to go out and do actual market research and use segment your market quantitatively with proper market research. That's really going to get you to increase your confidence in launching successfully. So having a brainstorming session as a management team definitely helps. It takes you to maybe better than a coin flip, but to really to be very certain that it's going to work, bake in some market research and actually listen to your customers and survey your customers and look at any sort of supporting third-party data that can help you really get validation that, yes, this is the target segment that we're definitely going after. But if you recall back to the product innovation charter, it's part of our strategic planning process. I said there are 2 boxes you had to circle. Otherwise, it would be responsible for 85% of the product launch failures studied by HBR. And the second thing was, what problem are you solving for this target customer? So you've identified your target customer. Now, and by the way, it's an iterative process, but let's say that you found your target customer. Now we have to find a problem to solve for them. And it is overwhelming. There are unfortunately, a lot of problems in the world, and you might feel there's more problems than you can count, but I do have some good news for you. I believe that there's only 8 problems out there, that all problems can be put into one of eight buckets, and that's page 5 of your workbook. Send me feedback afterwards if you've thought of a 9th or 10th bucket, but I believe all of your customers' problems fall into one of these eight buckets. So another exercise to go through with your team. We won't have time today to do it in a breakout format, but we can do one example together as a group. But think about these 8 different problems that your customers may or may not be facing. And I highly encourage you to force yourself to put an answer in every box, even if you think it's a little silly or ridiculous, because sometimes that will trigger things in the mind that will uncover new ideas for you that maybe you didn't think of, and definitely that your competitors didn't think of yet. So it's a real opportunity for you. So let's go through these one at a time as a group and try to have a little fun with it. So let's pick Rolex as the company. Pretend we have the Rolex watch. We're going to launch a new premium Rolex watch. It's going to be $30,000. It's going to have all the latest watch technology in it. What problems does that solve for our customers? And so let's, I'll do the first one for you, but just to show you that we can stretch our imagination here, but then I want to hear from the group. How can a Rolex watch make our customer more money? Well, if I force myself to put an answer in that box, I might say, well, if I'm a salesperson and I'm wearing a Rolex watch instead of this cheap Fitbit, I'm going to be showing that I'm very confident and successful, and my customers are going to listen to me because they're going to see that $30,000 watch and say, oh, that guy must be a good salesperson because he can afford a Rolex watch, and they must have a great product for him to be so successful. So it's a bit of a stretch, but how about saving people time? How can a Rolex watch save someone time? Any creative guess things? There's no right or wrong answer. How can a Rolex watch save a customer time? It can tell time, but how can it save time?
I think it had features like an Apple Watch or whatever, just various utilities to.
There you go. Tools. There you go. Extra utilities that help you with other tasks, managing your tasks more efficiently. Love it. How about this one? Will be easy for Rolex. More recognition. Feel special or more important or more recognized. Anyone want to throw out? Something to put in that box.
Yeah, just never wearing a long sleeve that covers up your watch.
Yeah, people will know you're important.
Yeah.
Just the flash in your watch.
Finally.
How about more community?
Birds of a feather flock together. You want to be with all those rich folks at your country club that are all wearing the same kind of watch.
There you go. There you go.
And they probably really even have user groups or some, community around Rolex.
Yes,
I bet they do.
And there's a magazine just for those people.
And that's a great answer. What about contribution? See if anyone can stretch. Contribution, giving back to society or to helping others somehow. How can buying a Rolex watch help others?
Bet they have corporate social responsibility, or even to the extent that they sponsor all the major like tennis matches and tournaments and things like that. That might be seen as a contribution.
So maybe Rolex Corporate will give a $10 to or $1,000 or whatever to a charity if you buy a watch. I like it. More personal growth. Buying a Rolex watch, how does that help you grow personally?
I think if that's something that you aspire to have as a personal achievement or a marker of your own success, maybe. I don't know if that's what you mean, but.
Yeah, marker of your own personal growth. I'm gonna figure this out and reward myself with a Rolex watch. How about excitement? This one's an easy one. More excitement. I'll do this one. Just kind of like excitement of like opening up the box and seeing the gold shining in your face. And how about last one here? More certainty. How do you feel? Have more confidence or certainty in your life because you have a Rolex watch?
I would suggest because it's a reliable product and it's not going to break. And
Exactly.
It's going to last you a whole lifetime, and you'll pass it down to your children.
Love it. Yeah. Don't have to worry about it breaking or having to go to a watch shop to get it fixed. So where do you go to get your watches fixed? Excellent. Great answer. So you see, this was a little bit of a silly exercise, but the point is that you can fill up this box no matter what your product is. And what we see in terms of success rate is it's really easy to fill out the more money and more time boxes. Those should be the easiest boxes to fill out.
Hey, Rob.
Yeah? Did I hear a question? Oh, I think Suzanne had a question, but froze maybe.
I have a question. This is Janice, and I'm not on video. I apologize, but
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
So if I think of our product, I can see how tangentially it helps in some of these ways, but what about like more proficiency? Would that go under more personal growth or, more knowledge would probably go under more certainty. So I guess if there are things like that or more expertise, more assurance that you're up to speed, those would be, I'm thinking you would say a category underneath one of these categories, a subcategory or associated with one of these as a main category.
Yeah, you're right. I think, and we have a lot of content creators on the line here. Your content is educating people and knowledge, but really, why does that matter? Why does knowledge matter? I think you nailed a few good examples. Personal growth. I'm developing as an emergency physician. I'm feeling like I'm learning new things. Or more certainty. Hey, time is of the essence. I can't try to figure out what to do. I better stay current. Know what to do if I come across this situation. So yeah, definitely you can plug. I think you answered your own question. So I agree. Janice, did you have a question as well?
I did. As we went through this exercise, I keep going back to the center thing where it says problems. So, but we weren't giving problems. We were giving, that's where
that's a good point. Yeah.
Together.
Yeah, that's a good point. We're solving the problems of wanting more money, wanting more time, wanting more recognition, wanting more.
Okay.
Yeah, good question.
Thanks.
Excellent. Well, my encouragement to everyone is you don't have to. It's a good exercise to do all 8, but really focus on more money, more time, like I said, is pretty easy and straightforward. So that should be part of your value proposition, most likely. But really try to pick one or two of the more emotional ones, the other six, and think about what's your primary one and maybe a secondary one. And I think you're going to see a lot more success if you can tap into not just we'll make you more money, because everyone can say that to some extent, but get more money and more certainty, or get more money and feel like you're part of a bigger cause. So just really try combining 2 or 3 of these and prioritizing them in order, but having more than one, not necessarily all 8. So hopefully that gives you something to think about. Let's jump ahead now. Stage 2 was concept selection. I think that's pretty straightforward. We can talk about that another time. But stage 3, let's spend a few minutes there. This is economic evaluation. And as I mentioned, that there's really 2 types of economic evaluation, getting market feedback. So now that we have a strategy, we have a concept, let's put that in front of some of our customers and get some feedback. And the second one is modeling it all out to make your CFO happy that you're going to get a return on your investment here, or your owners. And so let's do another poll just to see how we're doing on, or what we're doing on these different dimensions. Let's see what we're all doing. Okay, in terms of, there seems to be lots of feedback being gathered for new product development here. Pricing, offers, user experience, feature sets. So that's great to see that we're getting feedback before we go and spend all that time and money building the product. How are we getting that feedback? It looks like competitive analysis, some quick surveys, some customer interviews. Formal UX testing is less prevalent. I think it depends maybe on the nature of the product that you're launching, how critical that is. And I do know that has an expense associated with it. And maybe it could be a topic for another day, but some of the advanced analytical techniques are not being used as much as some of the other things. If we had 15 weeks to the course, we'd go through some of these things together. But I think these things are much easier to use now than they were even 5 years ago, and can really make a big difference. And there's always a surprise. There's always a surprise when you use some of these more advanced techniques to figure out what each segment wants and which features matter and where willingness to pay is. So I'm pleased to see that there's lots of customer feedback getting into it, but I think there may be an opportunity to do more with analytics. Then in terms of building a P&L, that's a profit and loss statement where we kind of model out, hey, here are all our expenses, and here's what we think the funnel is going to look like, and here's how many new customers we're going to get. What we find, these results are pretty common to what we see across the board. We've found companies get the best results somewhere between option 3 and 4, so that there should be a P&L for each project, but there should not be analysis paralysis. I'm not saying the people who selected 4 here are guilty of that, but what we've seen is that it's good to have a P&L mainly to test your assumptions, because if your assumption is based on this being a $500 a year product, and you don't have confidence that people are willing to pay $500 a year, and you can only get $250, and you run that through your model and you realize it's unprofitable, that's really important to know at this stage. What we don't want to see is that you're spending months and months and months kind of getting every fine-tooth comb, sharpened pencil, getting every single number exactly right, because that's just going to delay your launch and hurt your ROI on things you've already done so far. So we do encourage people to build even if it's a high-level P&L, just kind of gut check what you're doing, make sure there's an ROI there, both of your money, of course, but also of your time, because launching new products, as we all know, consumes a lot of organizational bandwidth. So just make sure that you're using that bandwidth in the best possible way. Great, thanks for sharing that information. Let's jump now in our remaining time, spend about 10 minutes or so on the last phase, launch. And as I alluded to at the beginning, sometimes there's a bit of a, oops, sorry, did I not share those results? There we go. There's a little bit of a, if you build it, they will come mentality. Which, yeah, and I was guilty of that. And when I took the job at America's Test Kitchen, they just launched a cooking school right before I joined. It was very exciting, and they spent $1 million on it, and it looked really cool, and the courses were great. But the numbers the results were not very good. A couple $100,000 in revenue, but for $1 million investment, that's not really super exciting. So we looked at what we're doing from a marketing standpoint, and the answer was nothing. Like we spent all this time and money building something, and there were a couple house ads on the website and a couple house ads in the email from once a month or something like that. But that is not going to get a product out of the gate. So how can we make sure that we're thinking just as much about marketing as we are development? So we're not only spending all of our editorial resources and our technology resources and our partnerships with third parties to build the product or service, but we're also thinking about how we're going to launch it into the world. And it's more than just having a budget for marketing. It's really for having what we call a launch management system. So let me share my screen on that so we can talk about what that means. And what I thought we would do here, just to make this interesting, is there's someone in the audience who wants to volunteer for us as a group to collectively build a launch management system for them. So is there someone in the audience who is launching something relatively quickly, and we want to make sure that we think through all these things that could go right or wrong with the product launch, and we can use you as our real-time case study. Free consulting from 20 smart people. Ed, you want to go? Sorry. What are you thinking about?
I wouldn't say I want to go, but I'm willing to go if nobody else is. So yeah.
So tell us what you're thinking about launching.
All right. Well, we are getting ready to launch a investment advisory subscription product on investing in clean technology, and there's a category of investing for people that aren't aware called ESG, or environmental, social, and governance, which is sort of companies doing well, doing right, one way or the other. But the big piece of that is the environmental piece, where the clean technology piece, batteries, electric vehicles, that sort of thing. So we're about to launch a subscription product for that with someone who's been running a shadow portfolio over the last year that got 100% returns in 2020. So we've kind of pre-tested the investing thesis.
Nice. Too bad it was only a shadow.
Yeah. Well, he invested in it himself, so he did.
Okay. Oh, gotcha. All right. Nice. All right. So Cav is going to launch an investment advisory, I guess, subscription product, investing in clean tech, the ESG space. Tell us a little bit. So there's 4 things we try to do in launch. We try to build awareness. Depending on your business model, you either want people to sign up for free trials, or if you don't have free trials, you at least want them to show interest because they're clicking on ads or going to the landing page or calling or talking to sales. So something to drive trial or interest. We of course want to drive conversions, and then we don't want any post-purchase dissonance. We want people to stick around for a while and be happy with the product. So Ed, which one of these are you most concerned about? Or most unproven about, and maybe as a group, we can help you think through some potential problems, what to track, and then what we can do in case things don't go as planned.
Sure. Yeah. So now when we launch a product, we actually don't trial. We do low price trials for mature products, but for new products, we want to know, is this something that someone finds intriguing, or are they really committed to it? So we actually only offer one. When we launch a product, what we tend to do is say, it's a brand new product, you can get it for half price, or you can lock in for a full year, or you can lock in half price for 2 years, and save for 2 years. So we're looking to get 50% or 100% of the subscription price and a 1 year or 2 year commitment to it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we don't really, there isn't a lot of trial.
For you, it's not really trial. I guess then maybe it's more of the interest thing. How many people are coming to the landing page, or how many people are
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Opening the emails to talk about it, or yeah. So where would you like some brainstorming help from the group? Is it an awareness thing, or is it a conversion thing, or?
I guess the conversion thing really is, it's a classic. Have you made me money?
Yeah.
If you made me money, I continue. And if you haven't, I probably won't. So I guess it's really on the awareness, that getting the word out to people that there's this new thing. And we go to our existing customers and our prospect list, but
All right. So what are some things that might go wrong? So you're trying to build awareness with your existing customer and your existing prospect list. What are some things that could go wrong there that will and other people can chime in here. What should Ed be worried about in terms of building awareness using his existing contacts and existing customer and prospect lists?
I'll throw out that I think there's always a potential problem of people who, the bright shiny object folks.
Yeah.
So, oh, I'm interested in this, but they're already getting something else, and all they do is we're doing is shifting the revenue around from an existing product to a new product and adding costs. So there's that's certainly an issue. We want to try to make this be additive, not a replacement for another product they're already getting.
Gotcha. So cannibalization risk.
Yep.
I think another one could be in the marketplace. I mean, this is a very popular topic right now. I mean, it's kind of cool to be green. So there's a lot of competition out there for that message, or for the attention of people that are attuned to that message.
Yeah.
And they probably want to know, are they putting money where their mouth is? So I wonder if I can't remember if you have print products, but if, or if you use direct mail, they're going to say, oh, forget that. So, okay.
That's a good one. So one problem is cannibalization. Another problem is competition. The potentially crowded market. It would be tough or expensive to build awareness. Anyone want to have a third problem? Just because we like to think in threes.
About engagement, getting the new subscribers actually engage and then refer. That's
All right, that's a good one. Yeah, we're looking on the existing list. How engaged is the existing list going to be? Maybe there's people on the periphery. The idea that came out of the brainstorming, and I know you added a comment to the chat as well. But
I would be curious to know. I have a question. I would be curious to know if there is a potential problem of denialism, of people who disagree politically with the thrust of the product, and therefore will turn their back on it and perhaps sour on your entire product. I would not like to think so, but I was curious.
Yeah.
I think there would be factions that would look at this as a political statement.
Although what you find with like the core investors, if there's a prospect of making money, they don't. I will invest in the baby killing. It doesn't matter if I can make a buck. There are people that I will invest in anything, and this is obviously the opposite of that. But yeah, but I'm sure there are segments that's true for.
I think you could use that as maybe your subtitle. This is the opposite of baby killing. So be with us.
Is that an attitude? Is that one of your values or attitudes? Anyway, all right. So we have 4 good potential problems here for Ed: cannibalization, competition, engagement, lack of engagement, and then some denialism. So let's just things Ed may want to track. For example, just thinking out loud now. For cannibalization, I think that's pretty easy to track. You can just see how many people are buying and canceling. So that's something you can track pretty easily. That's measurable. In terms of competition, I think what came to mind is just what your maybe a CPM or acquisition cost metric, because if it's a very competitive market, I'm not sure if you're planning on spending money to build awareness outside your list. But if there's a lot of competition out there, that would probably manifest itself in really high CPMs or cost per clicks or cost per acquisition, cost per order. In terms of engagement, something you may want to measure is just how does your existing list react to this relative to some other benchmarks that you may have. So click-through rates, open rates, you can just kind of probably measure it that way. And in terms of denialism, I guess that would lead to unsubscribes if people are really offended by it. So you can keep an eye on the unsubscribes. So I just wanted to demonstrate real time. These are some things you list. You go to get in the habit of listing your problems, looking for things you could track to see whether or not it is a problem or not. And then it's always good to have a contingency plan. So let's say let's just pick the first one, cannibalization. Any ideas for Ed is, let's say cannibalization is a risk. He's looking at those numbers and realizing that 50% of the people are buying the ESG product, but canceling their core Cabot subscription. What could Ed do about that? Any ideas for him?
Could you merge it into another product then, so that it just, so rather than losing, it's just more of a step up and enhances another product, so it's combined?
It's a great idea.
Yeah, and pricing, I think you could do something there too with, combining with what Tama was saying about the kind of bundling into it, or an add-on or an upgrade or something like that.
Yes.
Rather than a separate.
And we've done that too, where we had one product and we started a second product with the same author, and we knew it was going to be very close, so we created not only just the individual pricing, but a combined offer at a significant discount to buying them both individually. And 85% of the people buying it bought the combination. Mm-hmm. So that it kind of took away the cannibalization and made people upsell themselves.
Cut your average order price.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I can't believe we're already at time just about. I think this went by really fast, and hopefully didn't feel to you like we had yet another Zoom call with PowerPoints. But this is just the start of a conversation. Wanted to share some ideas to get you excited about new product development and how there are some simple things you can do to increase the odds of your success. And I'm really encouraged. As I said, I'm very passionate about new product development, and it's great to see 2/3 of you are working on something this year, and maybe this session triggered the remaining third to think of other new products that they may want to get in the game on. And it is still risky, it is still complex, but there's a couple tools we went through today to help you reduce the stress there. But thanks for inviting me on to do this. It was a pleasure. We have one last poll actually that is related to next steps, and then Stephanie has a few concluding remarks. But we were thinking, if there's interest, we went really quickly through this. Maybe we can come back with a 3-hour version of it for interested parties. Ed tacked on the brilliant idea of it's not only 3 hours together, then it's maybe a half-hour one-on-one afterwards to go through some of the exercises that you did. So here's a poll, if you wouldn't mind just sharing some feedback on if that idea is compelling at all for the renewed group, or if it is, kind of what would be some interesting topics to go deeper on.
Great, thanks so much, Rob. Well, while that poll is up and letting everybody fill that out, we'll close this out. So really appreciate the presentation. Love the handouts. It's definitely something that I know that we can use in our company. So thank you so much. If anybody has any additional questions, we'll be sending out an email within a week with a link to the recording and the handout. Rob's contact information will be included as well. So feel free to chat with him directly and to continue the discussion within the Renewed community. If you haven't already, be sure to check out our webinar library at renewed.net and save the date for our first ever virtual conference, which will be September 14th through 16th. Thank you all for attending. We hope you enjoyed it.